We begin today's episode several weeks back in the wraith and ravaged town of Vania. Back then, the party looked a little bit different. You were in a place that was hostile and cursed, and at times it seemed like all hope was lost. And in this moment, something awakens that isn't the darkness, which isn't inherently evil, but a spark of awareness comes to mind in a stone, an automaton. As Rory, you find yourself wakening almost from a long slumber, one that you've been vaguely aware of the happenings for an age at this point. But to all of a sudden be thrust from somewhat aware to fully is a little bit of a shocker. Your body feels heavier, stronger still, but more rigid than you remember. As well as your mind seems to expand far beyond the reaches that you had before. And it takes a moment before, as you feel somewhat of a presence leaving you like whispers, at the same time, almost like little tendrils of energy and memory starting to come in of not just the past couple days, but the last 800 years. You're both aware and not aware of the people you are traveling with. They are friends, they are associates, they are our teammates, family. All of those questions hang in the air as Rory and Blackstone, what are some thoughts that are entering your mind at this time?
Having a player moment while I buffer because I'm like trying to process where in time this is.
Yep.
Um,
You're still in, I would say at this moment, you're still in the chamber. You just defeated the kind of dragon, Cielo, freed them from corruption.
okay, so we're in the mountain.
Yes, you are very much in the mountains still.
Okay. Well, a curious thing. What is this? Where is this? Is this Vania near Jorix? Is that where we are?
Can you roll a history check for me, please? As you're kind of thinking back on this, placing where you're at.
That is a nat 1 on history.
Okay.
This is one of those, we're going to just let the dice do the storytelling today.
Yep. You as you're trying to like collect yourself, you sense and both hear and see a small spark as like some of those. You are an automaton that's rarely made, not of metal, but of stone. But the magic acts almost like wire connections kind of interwoven throughout your entire body. And it's like when you turn on a light or something that has not been used in a very long time, there's usually a little bit of a spark as that happens. And for a moment, it's almost like you see error as you're kind of processing. I will say it's been a long time since you've seen this chamber. You don't know how long, but it's been it did not look like this when you last left, kind of thing.
All right.
This is not how you left things.
I suppose I should have a look around. And they reach up to adjust where their working glasses would be.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? Stone? And they remove one of their gloves. Okay, so I'm stone, but not petrified. Well, isn't this unusual? Certainly not. And I would like to make a quick investigation check.
Sure.
Here. Okay. You know what? I think just for the razzle dazzle, I'm going to add a D12 to it.
Sure. Can easily do that.
And that was a maximum roll. So that investigation is a 28.
Okay. What are you looking for?
Just closing I want to try to look at this and see if I can remember what my handiwork looks like and see if this bears the same markers, because every maker has their kind of signature in the stuff that they make. I would
have said you didn't have to roll. I think that's something that you were someone that lived with their work, and you've been in Blackstone's body before. Granted, it was on missions and it was for especially intricate parts of the mission, I would say, like spirit recon with healing, or we're trying to get some information and stuff. So you are familiar. I feel like that doesn't involve a roll. You are aware of the signature, of the fact that the stone works in place. It's a very special stone that you are imbuing your magic into. I would say based upon that, I think something sparks in the distance of connection of both remembering and not remembering a small halfling boy, an Illipin, who uses an amethyst and imbues his magic in there. It's not too different from that. Your magical signature is all over this. So this is your handiwork. This is you remember this. This is coming home but it's been a while.
Is it? Surely I'm not on a recon mission. There's a dragon. There is a human. An owl bear. What is happening here? Better for everybody?
Let's see. Is it better?
Are we okay?
Yes. Okay, we're
fantastic.
Good. Thank you. Shout out to our mods who are incredible. Thank you so much.
It is a thing. Okay. Back. And scene. So. As far as Rory knows, when Rory's in this particular body doing things, have there been other occupants here? Or is normally it's just kind of like, hi, this is the body I put my soul into to go and do a couple of things and then I come back. And this is like, I think in his mind, him being in this body would have been a thing that preceded the, creation of Blackstone to permanently live here.
Sure. I think Blackstone's almost always been there, but took on more of the role that Carmen did for Blackstone, largely, of like, was that voice of like systems operating, of like 90%, like giving you those statuses. And since you were gone, Blackstone kind of went on autopilot. And that was that autopilot.
Not Blackstone being the AI.
And then Carmen was the security, basically, if you think about it.
This is unusual. Normally, I don't see you here when I am running things. What is happening? Is there a diagnostic? And there's a long pause for Blackstone before he goes, I think they took Carmen. Excuse me? Pardon? What do you mean, took Carmen? Well, they attached an item of some kind, a rhomboid shape, and they create one, an illusion of one. And this device was used to capture her. So, the guardian of our library is gone. And I do not know to where or to what end. But I feel like if I'm going to find out what to do next, I need to know what she knew, or at least what she was guarding. Also, seeing you is also unusual. Seeing you is also unusual. It has been some time, and possibly the first time that we've been able to meet like this.
Rory, do you mind rolling an insight check on yourself, I would say?
An insight check on me?
Mm-hmm.
Is an 18.
18. You're sorting through a bunch of those memories and thoughts that are kind of playing almost like a cinematic record for you right now. And I think the question of who Carmen or what Carmen was protecting, you ask it, but I think that doesn't hang in the air very long. As almost like the maps that you created in your laboratory come to mind of instead of plot points and sketches of potential other automatons and creations, instead what pops to mind are the incidences where proximity to those locked doors occurred. One pretty recently happening in Felk, as memories of Theodora with a question mark and Blackstone running around the caverns of your mind, their mind, both of your minds, and getting to a locked door and unable to go through until Carmen stepped in. First scolding you that that Blackstone had perhaps made this particular venture a little bit more complicated than it needed to be, which is Blackstone's very nature, being curious about the world and exploring. But what we now see as the camera moves through that locked door is the sleeping visage of you in life, aware to an extent, as much as you can be, getting wisps and whispers through a locked door, having somewhat of an awareness, but not ever fully present. Time shifts. And a similar moment comes to when you're somewhat awakening in a cabin in the mountains far from here. And you can feel like pressure points vaguely, like almost when someone's like maybe putting a blanket on you when you're sleeping. And you can feel those pressure points of like checking to make sure you're okay. Seems to be like wiping off some either dirt or dust that is heavy on you. And you can hear the mutterings of an elderly man as your eyes kind of focus, but not completely. Kind eyes, long beard. And it's a moment when you can feel Blackstone is very much there, forward facing. And you're there almost like watching things through a screen, just doing things automatically, but you're exhausted. This is a time 200 years ago when your body and even Blackstone's awareness went from full stasis to awareness. And it was at this moment that that door had been built but not locked. And as you kind of become aware of what's going on, that your body is being moved, Blackstone's talking, but it's kind of like hearing something underwater. It's garbled. You hear Carmen's voice kind of soothing you. It's not time yet. Rest. You're okay. You're okay. Sleep. Sleep. And whether that relaxes you or brings you peace, you find yourself lulled back into somewhat awareness, somewhat stasis, but not before hearing that click of a key in the door as you find yourself safely locked. It then pans back even further to, from this present moment, about 800 years ago, as those flashes of memory, decisions needing to be made on a quick basis, but feeling yourself disperse like particles in the air and reforming within Blackstone. Hearing Carmen's ever-present wish throughout all of this, which is wanting you to be safe, wanting to give you a chance at happiness. That she was so sorry for all of this, and that the best chance going forward, not just for you, not just for Felk, but for the rest of the world as well, would be for you to be present, to be safe, to be preserved. And in her final moments, that's what she was, along with the help of her partner, able to give you. You and her were very close out of the siblings, the four of you. The two eldest, the two much younger. Always, she was always expected to be the head of Felk. So the mantle of responsibility fell heavy on her shoulders. But the mantle also fell heavy on yours, to always keep an eye on her, to keep an eye on Felk, to keep an eye on your younger siblings too. That thread that interweaves all aspects of the family together. And in those moments, those threads are still there, but it's like they're worn away. They seem almost foreign to you. And in some aspects, the group that you're now traveling with feel a little bit closer to some of those ties. Maybe. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But all of that kind of clicks as you're doing your systems checks, doing your analysis. You can tell that your body of Blackstone has been injured, for sure. Spirit of Blackstone, which is in essence... Let me ask this to you. When you created Blackstone, the idea was to offer spirit healing and allow for better assistance when it came to recon. But what else was he made for? What part of you did you imbue yourself into Blackstone? Was it hope? Was it fear? What emotion was most beyond just curiosity? Because the spirit of curiosity is present with everybody. What other emotion would you tie to him?
I think curiosity was honestly the main one. It is the want to know and to understand. I think what he imbued Blackstone with is a sense of wonder about the world. To find the magic in observing even the most mundane thing. But I think also in what you have described, there is a moment where Rory has done a diagnostic and has kind of understood the current state of things. Some of the diagnostics mention how much time has passed. An audit log of entry is about all the things that have happened. As Blackstone tries to explain parts of it, and he compares the diagnostics readout he gets to the things that Blackstone reports. I suppose I have several questions, but I do have one major one right now. Unfortunately, you were made for scouting. Partly because, well, I am a scientist and this is the kind of thing that we do. But also because we were a nation on the precipice of war. And so, people needed to do recon and other types of automatons were required and built and tested and all manner of things. Blackstone, there's a lot of things that tell me what has happened and how long it has happened. But I have yet to see anything that explains why. Blackstone, can you explain to me what happened, and more importantly, why these diagnostics read as they read? Where was I for that time? Why was I placed there? Recently, I took a trip back to our ancestral land of Felk. Ancestral. Well, I suppose that word makes sense now, considering that it has been apparently 8 centuries since the last time I have seen this place. Well, yes. We found a library, and at the library was a shiftweave attendant who was able to explain what happened that caused us to be in the state that we're in. And, well, it is summarily unpleasant. Go on. The Ouroboros Society, you remember them? I do. Well, they may have... Okay, maybe not may have. One of them nearly succeeded in accomplishing their task of creating these soul-absorbing items and using them on the citizens of Felk to absorb both their knowledge and their magic and trap their souls forever. And so, our sister and her partner unleashed a very powerful magic. And that magic removed our city from its connection to the Veil. That is why you are still here, and why she was still here. She used her remaining strength to place both of your souls here and preserve them. Because, well, otherwise, you would never be able to leave Felk's borders. And let's just say, using so great a magic did not come without its costs. It cost everyone on the spot was heavily injured, and some of those people died. Among some of the wounded were, well, you. And, that was a cost she was not willing to accept, and so this happened instead. Both a bit of grief and a bit of rage start to set into Rory's features. But he keeps himself calm because this is just what's being reported. This isn't Blackstone's fault necessarily. And then what happened? Well, I suppose in essence, in a way that you would be able to understand, I was made the primary for a time. And centuries passed, and I found myself on a mountain where settlements and people and generations came and passed until I was found by some professor of a magic school in Jorix who happened to be out on sabbatical for whatever reason. I still don't know enough about academia to understand how those things work. That was, I suppose, 50 years ago, but I was on the mountain for 200 years prior to that. We are approximately 200 and nearly 51 years since this body was restored, and I have awakened since then. And I have since kept my presence for the most part a secret, as it is my understanding that the society continues to exist, and they were looking for me. And maybe in some ways, they still are. I do not know what state Carmen happens to be in, and whatever state she happens to be in, I'm not able to use the knowledge you have placed in my programming to find her. I suppose somewhat similar to what it is like when you try to contact Felk. Although, I would imagine you don't know what that's like, so allow me to explain it this way. There is a bubble that protects the place from divination of all sorts and things. So, whether by spirit magic or by arcane magic or any of those means, if you try to reach things within the city, you do not get anything. It is unreachable. But I am here now because, well, Carmen was guarding a library of knowledge. She was very cautious about me finding out what was in the library because of what it might attract if I started learning things and applying any of them. And I suppose, given our situation, I think we're beyond the need for being subtle about these things. So, our home city is destroyed. It has been 800 years since that time. You have been away for a quarter of that time. My sister is kidnapped and in the hands of the enemy. And there is some void creature, some society, and some void creature, and a society that is feeding that creature innocent souls across the continents. Has anything good happened in the world? I suppose some things have. I have practiced more science things that you taught me. I have made friends. I have a pet that at some point I think I would like to make a proper familiar. I have met families and I have learned how to make cheesecake. And I suppose, while the society continues to enact some of its many horrors, we have found things to enjoy. I have learned to hunt and people to care about. I have learned to do things that I am not sure you programmed me for, but they are enjoyable. Well, does this mean that you are going to go back to your friends? I don't think I'm ready to yet. As I mentioned, there was something that Carmen was guarding me from knowing. And I think at this moment, it might be best that I take the time to know. Also, for what it's worth, some of them have some of those memories, I believe, have some additional knowledge on your applications of spirit magic. And, well, I think it might be useful to learn that. I have come across a number of very interesting ways to use it and apply it that I don't think people in the more common senses have fully grasped yet. I don't know if this is an appropriate thing to say, but I'm a very interesting kind of creature. I would say that at this moment, that is a very appropriate thing to say. And for what it's worth, you're welcome. I am worried about my friends. I think my friends are equally worried about me. While I am in the library, would you care for them? If you get the time, although I cannot be there, I think Corbin may be able to forgive me this and allow you to perform the ritual in my stead. Maybe. Please make him a familiar. He was the first gift I ever got from a friend, and it was to learn how to care for living things and maybe make more friends. Ultimately, it seems to have worked out very well. Also, about the people that we have. They have people that they care very deeply for. I think it is important to remind them that they are not as far as they think they are. Some of them don't know how spirit magic works and don't know how easy it is to connect from one soul to another sometimes. It's lamentable that you didn't write a book about this. I think that probably would have helped. And they all have such interesting personalities and such vibrant lives. One of them has a pet owl bear. They're very friendly and they teleport. One of them has a puppy. I think all of us have managed to acquire some animal companion or other. Fascinating. Unfortunately, I do not think that they are immortal, or at least we haven't found a way to make them so. But I imagine that we will all be friends for a very long time. Well, I cannot say that I know very much about caring for pets, as I don't think I've ever had a companion that I did not build, but I will do my best. Are there other things I should know? Well, there are some interesting things I've managed to do in the time that you have been away. So, if you ever happen to find yourself in a couple of particular cities, like Jorix, you may find that people are familiar with my form. Typically, I wear a mask because as it was made, as I was made aware at the time, enemies were looking for me as I was a bit of an anomaly. Theodora was one of the first people who suggested to me that I need not wear one. I hope my research will not take me long. I think this connection that I have, the feeling that comes with it, I believe the phrase that people use is, I will miss this, or at least I will miss them while I am away. Oh, I think you know enough about the base mechanics for how this body works. But because you have made it adaptable, I may or may not have also acquired some additional things. You might want to make some advanced diagnostics checks on those. Oh, well, let's have a look then. Telepathy? You learned? Telepathy. It's so handy. It lets me talk to people without talking, but it also lets me share things like visual data and emotional data and all of these things in very intense detail that everybody's able to process, even if we don't necessarily share a language. It's great. Besides, you built me for both curiosity and connecting with things, so here we are. Or at the very least, maybe the connecting thing was a thing I decided after running into friends. Maybe more people should run into friends. Absolutely intriguing. What else did you learn? Well, I think if I try to communicate all of that at once, time is going to get away from us, and we don't have much of it, unfortunately.
We'll say at this moment too, while this inner monologue is kind of happening, you are moving. Blackstone, your body is moving almost on autopilot. The group that you're with is moving through the chamber, starting to head down the mountain, etc. Or no, you teleported, feeling yourself getting teleported down. And it takes you a moment before you go, because you do vaguely remember Cielo, the dragon guardian, but you don't remember them as a dragon before. You remember them vaguely. It's like looking through a dustied photo album, but seeing a very, very pale elven. No. more of like a nymph coming straight from the Fae, and kind of plucked here and left with a purpose. There must always be a guardian watching the gate. And this is one of the many gates throughout Ampistrano where the shift weave way lines are the most vulnerable. You don't need to roll to remember that. You have a base, not as much knowledge as Deodora does, but you do have a base knowledge. Your expertise is more in spirit. But you do understand that shiftweave and spirit act very similarly. And where this is where the main way line for the shiftweave is for the southeast portion of Ampistrano. The spirit way line for you, the closest one is in Jorix. And that's, as Blackstone has just mentioned, seems to be where you're heading next. That will allow for the familiar ceremony, as Blackstone is also requested for you to do, for that to even be a possibility. But all of those thoughts are kind of coming through your head vaguely as you're kind of on this autopilot, answering and responding to the party for sure whenever, Theodora seems to check in, or the other party members for sure. But not fully present. More present than you have been, though.
Blackstone, I would like you to know that I will have some questions about your friends and whatever happened in this underwater temple, and why we're running away from... Excuse me, is that an aboleth that we see upon the waters? I ill like this. Huh. This world may be in more danger than I originally thought. I don't think there was any way to conceive of the extent of this. What has happened around here? I feel like if I ask everybody to explain this to me, they are going to look at me as if I have been asleep for the last several months. I don't know if that's wise.
Why don't you roll an investigation check? And you can add your spirit bonus to this.
You said for investigation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I threw an inspiration die in there because this stuff is important. So that's a total of 26.
26. Wow. Okay. All right. As you're kind of walking through the dirtied and wrecked streets of Vania, it's like walking through history. As you're slowly watching it almost remake itself, your connection to spirit flowing out of you. And as you're walking, it's a similar sensation, you realize, to what Blackstone experienced when last in Felk. There's an alarming sensation when you realize that you are walking the path and you're not alone. And I don't just mean with your compatriots that you've been traveling with, But as your spirit reaches out to like map what happened here, the life of not only the city, but its people, you feel all of a sudden everyone's eyes on you. You're walking through a graveyard of unrested souls. Similar to Felk, but cursed in a different way, if you think about it. They're both cursed. Both of them unable to move on. One because of safety precautions that were set in place and perhaps secrets that need to be kept. But you have to imagine that Vania is one of many cities that weren't saved, didn't have the awareness or the gifts in place to be able to protect itself. It seems like everything started from the temple, that temple that's buried beneath the water. Something came through that gate, that portal. There was a reason that the chambers had to be split between the lake itself and the mountain, for what was being on purpose laid to rest here at Sun Point should not ever easily fall into another's hands. Something came through that barrier, and along with it, twisted the fairies of the Citadel, who were amongst many of those that follow the veil, commissioned to watch it, and instead turned against Friend. And that corruption, that backstabbing continued as whatever this was in the temple feasted. As you're getting flashes of memory of the violence from the temple spilling out over into the roads where farmers were sowing their crops and going about their days. A man is stabbed in the back with a knife, walking home. This violence continues like the river that is so close to Vania itself, spilling like ripple effects. And that violence continues. But from its wake is not only death, but a transformation of sorts. Simultaneously, there are two booms of crescendo and noise. One from the mountain, which you can see at this moment is starting to erupt. And you get a flash of memory. Cielo has triggered the volcano, and ash is raining down on the village. Panic. Because there's now not only who or where can we run to, but who are we potentially safe with as well. Those questions hanging in the air, unsure, untested. And it's at this moment too, there's a loud noise from the temple. And it's like a ripple, spans outwards. As you see a lone shift-weaving warrior, a druid, in their final moments. And you can hear their final thoughts like a prayer on the wind. wanting to keep this space safe as they could, but also, again, the fierceness that is a Shiftweavian warrior of, I will not go down alone. If I am going down, I am taking you with me. And from that, as ash falls on a city with so many hopes and dreams now being transformed into curses and anger and hatred, from that, a large wave rises, cresting almost as high as the mountain itself, before dropping, breaking. And as the lava pours down from the mountain, meeting those waters, you see rises of steam and ash all blending together. In a city that should have never been forgotten, much like Felk was forgotten, buried. But those in life that often are left with regrets, especially in their final moments, find themselves cursed beyond, unable to move on, and unable to reflect and process all of those emotions. Instead, it rotted away at their very souls. Whereas in Felk, it was preserved. Most of Felk has no idea of what befell them. Died so instantaneously they didn't even feel it. But here, those individuals felt everything, felt every betrayal, every loss. And that festered. Eventually, as time does, the city became unburied, but was a living graveyard of life and loss. The mark of betrayal. Vania means and you would know this, Vania means in Elvish, hope. And on that day, hope died, at least for this city. And those individuals are still cursed, unable to move on.
As Rory processes all of this, he wonders, having a sister who had a partner who was a fairy, either the veil is now or has been in grave danger for some time. Normally, they would see to something like this. Why has no one been sent here to deal with this? This is not the first time an angry spirit or group of them have never needed to be exorcised. Has the knowledge of spirit magic dwindled so much from the world?
And I would say from that check as well, similar to Felk, but also not. Felk has been disconnected from the veil, but the veil is still nearby. That's what allows for the land to still flourish. This is like cutting the cord completely. The dirt, dry, sand. crops, unless something changes drastically, will never grow. Is that what it means to be cursed? To never grow? To be locked in those emotions completely, of regret and anger? Of loss?
I think passively, Rory wonders how long the city of Vania has been like this.
I think with your spirit check, if you want that answer, you'll find that it has been like this almost as long as you have, along with Blackstone, been in your current state. Almost 800 years. Not long. It definitely didn't fall before Felk did. But considering the state of things, it didn't last long. Likely what happened, Felk was the first target in the west, Vania in the east.
What a long game to play. And I think as he hears the party ahead talking about getting to their daughters, getting to Jorix, trying to find their families, none of it seems like the appropriate time to go. Someone needs to do something about this mountain and this place. And the wraiths, the revenants, the wrathful undead who live here. He does wonder at the time, as he looks at the party and sees a fairy there, if others have been sent to deal with this and if something ill befell them, if this fairy was sent to this mountain to deal with this and hasn't yet for some reason, or if something so much worse is happening that no one's had the time to tend to this. Because there's been 8 centuries for this place, nearly 8, possibly 7, that it has remained like this. And on a ley line, no less. I think because, let's say, shift weave and spirit magic are not similar, but, well, are not identical, but similar enough. It's one of those, having all of this happening right next to a ley line could also be dangerous for things connected to the ley line. He also wonders what's protecting that in addition to everything else. Your friends are going to need a lot of protecting, Blackstone. But at the very least, if you were going to ask anybody to do it, your older brother is probably the best possible choice. And I think those are most of his final thoughts. Except for taking a moment to, while they're in transit to Jorix, to do the ritual here. So,
Sure.
I'm gonna have to have you do a cameo real quick. As they pull out a somewhat sleepy mouse out of their hood.
Somewhat sleepy, exhausted. If you recall, the effects of Vania were impacting everyone to the point that you can see over the next couple of days, Theodora starting to come to herself a little bit more. Had been a little bit, and it's understandable, a little bit on edge. almost obsessive, though, about getting to the mountain. And it does. It feels like as distance is gained, as you're riding the Misty Haven to Jorix over the next couple of days, the next week, next 2 weeks, those thoughts that you have in regards to Vania are still there, but they don't feel as oppressive. It's not necessarily out of sight, out of mind, but more of like, I'm going to put a bookmark in that and come back to it. As you can see that there's not only just changes within the landscape around, as you see after a day's travel away from Vania, the landscape changing back towards more of a well-worn forest and lively fields, almost like flipping the page of a book. It's just a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
But you also see from that, the group, there's chatter about, once you get to the city, of what's going to happen next, with several noting that this is a bit more than they had bargained for. And while they're happy that everyone's safe, once they get to the city, things may change. And it's not that they're not careful or aware of what's happening, but it does ask that question, and to all of you, what's the cost of being an adventurer to do all this? And some not able to pay that price. For you, even in your limited awareness, this is all you've known. It's built in you. And not just through programming. It's just always been who you are.
I think more than that, for Rory, it's been 800 years. Like, Rory is like a half-orc, you know? Just that time that a normal half-orc lives has come and gone a dozen times in that span of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a lot of ways, it's one of those, if I have continue to exist this long past my expiration date,
Mm-hmm.
I might as well make good on it in the largest way possible.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if time itself hasn't seen fit to collect me yet. So we're here. And I think for everyone else, having seen the stuff that he's seen and lived through, there's a type of honesty in the conversation that he understands.
Sure. And we'll say at that moment, the city starts to get within sight. Looking both very similar, but also dissimilar to what you remember. It's like looking at two different photographs. Now a third with this city coming into sight. As you remember this city vaguely, much smaller, as Rory, coming to life. Instead of the many quarters, there were maybe 3 of the 7 or 8 that are now live. Yes. We're going to do that when we come back from our break. But yes. And so I have to imagine a bit of a shocker to see, again, kind of a note of you have not been here in a while.
Sorry. Perhaps I am unfamiliar, but what place is this that we're going to?
And I have to...
Can I imagine that Theodora is
Yep.
the person who responds and goes,
I was going to say that.
Jorix, the place that we've been like trying to get to like the whole time so far.
Yep.
My goodness gracious.
Sorry. I love you, Fair. I just love you and I both keyed into it's probably Theodora saying this, but yes.
Because I think at this point the party would know that I'm Rory and not Blackstone. It would be responding as such.
Yes.
So,
well, and to be fair, Theodora is always, I would say, been a bit more patient with Rory, Blackstone, and the many curiosity and the questions that pop up. The two of you have built, granted, again, it's more with Blackstone, but there is a bond that is there. One of almost like a mama bear trying to make sure you're okay. You have your lunch, you have your school books, your backpack. Like,
she did teach me how to hunt. You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole thing.
She's very much always been, even though she at times is very fierce and don't fuck with her kind of vibe, there is a softness to her that definitely comes out with this group, and especially I would say with Blackstone, in terms of just making sure that he's okay. I don't think many people would agree to go on a mind journey with you. To try and explore. That's some stuff that only very good friends really do, I would say. But as the city comes into view and Theodora's response of it's Jorix hangs in the air, I think that's an excellent time for us to take a break. Yeah. So, we're going to take a break for about 10 minutes, y'all. Thank you so much. I'm loving reading all the comments and stuff, so please make sure that you are getting snacks, drinks, potions. Take your medicine if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel, both here and on YouTube if you would like. And we will be back here in about 10 minutes. So see you all very shortly.